So thank you for joining us earlier this morning. We had a non-resident property owner coffee. I thought it was great. It's a little bit hard to manage so many participants and trying to also keep our trains of thought like heading in the same direction. So that's why we're trying to be a little bit more restrictive with this particular coffee. We are hosting 3 of these this morning, Dirt and the Chamber. This one is focused on restaurant owners. We're also gonna, in a little bit, talk about short-term lodging and then have a conversation about retail. So if you can try to keep your questions to which appropriate industry we're talking about today, that will help us kind of stay on track. I wanted to welcome Sheriff Chris Cambish to the conversation. I would also like to welcome our EMS Director, Buffy Witt, and our Emergency Manager, Phil Graham. I'd also like to welcome the DIRT Board members and the Chamber Board members, as well as our Public Health Director, Tara Hardy, and the Town of Lake City. I saw that we have Caroline on. So thank you, Caroline Mitchell, for joining us as well. We are this morning talking about first our current status for the orders that we are under right now, and Tara's going to give us some information about that. And then following that current discussion, I think we might take a little bit, we might take some questions at that point for the current orders that we're under, and then for restaurants, we'll go into the options that we have as a community with moving forward. I would just really like to thank you guys for joining us this morning. We are excited to hear from you directly. I'd like to give a shout out to Kat Menzies of the Chamber for hosting happy hours and really working to get the businesses involved and together. I'd also like to thank a smaller group of business leaders that has been getting together on Sunday evenings to kind of help guide some of these discussions. We really appreciate your involvement with that as well. And I am hopeful that we can have as normal as possible of a summer, and so we're looking forward to figuring out together how we can do that for our business owners and for our residents, for our second homeowners, and for our visitors. So looking forward to the conversation. And I am going to go ahead and mute myself, Kat, so that Tara can speak. All right, thank you.
Great. Hopefully everybody can hear me over my loud computer. I just want to, first of all, open this up by extending my thanks to all of you for being here and for the amazing work that we've all done as a community to keep our numbers low thus far through all of this great unknown and everything happening around us. It has not been easy for anyone, so I really appreciate everyone's diligence to what's been asked of them so far. As you know, we had a big public health event happen globally. It impacted our nation and our state and even our small community. And up to this point, it's been treated as a public health event. As a result of a lot of the what we've had to do to manage that and to help prepare for that, it's had some economic impact. And so now we're kind of in the point where we're trying to have to come together to weave in what will work to start alleviating some of that economic impact, and keep in mind that we still have to be diligent to make sure that we don't have a spike in numbers or we don't have a reoccurrence. And that's always our goal, not to have a reoccurrence in any of this. So I appreciate everybody's opportunity to give some input into what that looks like for our community, what works well for us. Current situation right now, and we're talking restaurants, right, Christy? That's our first topic. Okay. So current situation right now, we have local public health orders in effect until May 15th, at which point our local public health orders will drop. And then our our community will be blanketed by the state Safer at Home guidelines. Under the Safer at Home guidelines, those are set to be reevaluated by May 26th. What the governor will do, it's really hard to say. All of this has been a really interesting position for everybody dealing with this, because we haven't had any more heads up about what the direction is going to be. And we haven't had any more warning than anybody else. So when the governor announces it on public, that's when we know about it as well. So it's been really hard to kind of answer questions of when do we expect this? When do we expect that? And I feel, the state's done a good job of kind of putting those trigger points in place of what helps us monitor the situation, keep it under control, what helps us know the impact in our community. Obviously, increased testing was one of those trigger points for the state. We do have some increased testing so that we can get a better snapshot of what it's like in our communities and in our surrounding communities. So we're able to do that a little bit more. And so as the governor's put in these phase processes that we don't really know what they're going to look like exactly, I realize it creates a hardship for people to know, like, what date will this be lifted? And that is a huge part of what's so frustrating about this, is that up to this point, a lot of our answers that's come from me and my office has been, I don't know what that looks like. But what I can tell you is May 15th, our local orders will expire and the Safer at Home goes into effect. Under Safer at Home, as far as restaurants are concerned, they are still asked to not have indoor dining. We're still subject to the no more than 10 people in group sizes and whatnot. And so restaurants are still kind of restricted under that Safer at Home. The intent of Safer at Home is to still encourage anywhere between 55 and 65% social distancing effort. And the governor came up with that number as a projection of what the Colorado School of Public Health in their projections indicated that would keep us below those trigger points that would put our healthcare system at risk of surge capacity. So under that Safer at Home, they're still encouraging people not to travel for vacation and all of that, and don't travel outside of your county more than 10 miles, whatnot. And restaurants still fall under that, the restrictions of takeout or to-go only, and encouraging that. So that's the current situation for restaurants. That's the current situation for our local orders moving forward. And I don't know, Christy, I'm not sure, I'm not sure what you wanted for me to talk about next. That is the current situation.
Thank you, Tara. Do we want to open up questions from restaurant owners about the current situation before we talk about options? Maybe can people raise their hand, Kat, if they have questions? I'm so sorry, you guys. How long it's gonna...
I mean, I'm not sure right now. I did open the chat if people want to ask questions.
Perfect.
Okay, so your first question is, can we offer outside dining if tables are 6 feet apart?
So currently
Ooh, I don't know if Tara, is that for you, Tara?
I can answer that. Currently, under Safer at Home, there's no on-site dining, whether it's inside or outside.
Okay. Linda Lovegreen would like to know if we are going to file for a variance. Christy.
So I think, Linda, where we're going to start is if there's any questions about the current takeout only, basically, orders. And then I think we'll let Tara talk about the 3 options that we have. And then the outcomes of this discussion and you guys providing feedback to the county will be used for our Monday meeting to inform the commissioners and public health, because we have a special meeting scheduled for Monday to talk about next steps, whether we would be or would not be asking for a variance. So maybe we'll hold that question, but that's going to be part of the discussion. If there are any other questions about how restaurants currently need to manage themselves, or if you guys want to share any of those questions just directly with public health or directly with the public information officer at the county, would also be fine. Okay, Tara, I think if you want to go into, sort of our next steps, that would be great.
So, yeah, so in the Safer at Home orders issued by the governor, they do create a variance option. The variance process gives local control over being able to lift some of those restrictions in a safe manner as possible. The process looks like this. So basically, the county would be the ones applying for the variance. They would be submitting, here's our plan for how we're going to continue to address COVID suppression and keep it, how we're going to address COVID and keep it suppressed within our community. I would be part of that process of helping kind of develop some of those guidelines of what those safe protocols look like specific to restaurants. Once we kind of look at, that safest route and what works, we would, public health, our medical center, we would develop what our trigger points are for monitoring the situation to see if this is working or not. We would include that in that variance process. So there's still that aspect of we're keeping an eye on the situation, and if we determine that our social distancing strategies for our community around these variance sectors are working or aren't working, then we need to start reevaluating how we're going to go back to addressing that to make sure that we don't overwhelm our system and have this huge outbreak. Once we have that plan together, the commissioners have to technically vote on it. Obviously, they wouldn't be wanting to move forward with variance if they hadn't voted on it. Public health would offer an endorsement on it, indicating, yes, we support this plan. We feel like it's a good compromise for starting to open up slowly and give some leeway to some of our businesses that have had a hard impact. And we can certify that we've had low cases. That's one of the things that you have to have is you have to have had a low case count and a low percentage rate of cases in your community, or you can show that it's flattening out or that you haven't had any for, up to 2 weeks. So that's one of the benefits of how well our community did. We had low cases. We are able to apply for that variance. The hospital also, since we don't have a hospital in our community, I don't know if that would come from our medical center or the Gunnison Hospital, still trying to get some guidance on that, but they would have to sign off on it as well and indicate that they have the capacity to serve our community if we needed it. And then the county would submit that plan to the state. The state would review it, and the state would have the ultimate say if they felt like that plan met everything that they needed to have been met. As part of the variance process, basically what we do is we come up with, here's the recommended structure for what will work for restaurants. Here's the guidelines for social distancing your tables and limiting the number of interactions and encouraging to go take out, all of the different things that would have to be met. It would be up to the restaurants to kind of come up with that plan. How does that look in my restaurant? What does that look like? What am I going to require the employees to do? What am I going to require the patrons to do? How am I going to implement those best practices that are put forth in the variance? Basically, because we're not operating under local orders anymore, we're going under the Safer at Home. This then becomes the guiding document to say we are able to operate, and it is up to these business owners to make it work and implement these strategies. Like, this is the standard that we have to live by in order to make this work. So it becomes that piece that gets enforced, because basically we're telling the state, please give us, that flexibility to do this, and here's what we are committed to maintaining in order to make that happen. So it puts more of the responsibility back on individual business owners and the community members to do their part to make sure that it works. It's very critical that we don't begin operating under the variance request until we get approval, because the state has indicated that COVID-related funding could be tied to that if we move forward prior to having that variance offered. So that's the variance process in a nutshell. So I guess the commissioners are wanting that input of which sectors to include in their variance and how to move forward with that. And as it relates to that economic pressure that we need to have lifted off of our community. And then, we'll work together to figure out those best practices and how to make that work.
Great, Tara, thank you. There's a question from Jeff Heaton about what other counties have gotten a variance. On the state's website, as of probably last I looked was Tuesday, there were only 2 counties who had formally had received the variance approval, and those were early counties to do it, Mesa County and Eagle County. You guys were probably made aware of that a few weeks ago. We've looked at Mesa County's document. The variance process has continued to evolve a little bit. Montezuma County submitted a variance request on Monday, and then they had to resubmit it on Wednesday with a new process. Mineral County is in the process of drafting their variance. I can tell you that the percentages that's been kicked around, or the one that is approved in Mesa County, is a 30% to fire code of dine-in seating. So there's that's what is working in Mesa County. Let's see. And actually, I think, Kat, what we'll do, so I can just give you guys some information about what the other counties are doing that we were looking at, and then we want to hear from you. We don't want to have all the answers. We don't have all the answers. Of course, we don't have all the answers. We want to hear from you what your feelings and thoughts are, so that that information can be passed on to the commissioners and to public health for our Monday meeting. Today is really just about kind of a brainstorm within our restaurant owners to be able to see if we could follow some sort of protocol. We have, one of our businesses has given us sort of a sample plan of what it would look like for them. And so if that is helpful, we can ask if you've developed some protocols for your own individual business, if that would be helpful for you to share with other business owners. Again, these are just sort of, this is what we would be able to do, or what we would propose to do. There's a question from Grizzly RV Park. How are you guys? How long does it take to get the variance approved once it is submitted? There's various answers to that. Some places we see 3 days. The reality is that it's taking maybe up to 5 or 6 days. And again, the state and the local government's processes are evolving. You guys can see in the chat box here that Linda Lovegreen has provided her email address, and she's the restaurant owner that has sort of drafted a bit of a plan for her business, and that's just kind of a starting point for you guys to look at. I think that it addresses how to achieve those social distancing, the contactless check-in, or coming in and seating, how you, yeah, I'm sorry, Tara, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, just thought I might help you out here a little bit, Christy. So Jody Lindsay is our health inspector, and she spent a lot of time crafting what got approved from Mesa County, working with that as a starting point, as well as receiving input from Jeff Lawrence, who's our CDPHE environmental health lead at the state level as well, and kind of coming up with a document. Mineral County's a little bit ahead of Hinsdale County in having their variance process application ready to go. I suspect they will probably submit it today, but I'm not sure. I think they're still kind of working on some things. Anyway, Linda submitted her plan. It almost captured almost every single one of the things that Jody had kind of compiled. I think we're kind of aware of what that starting point is as far as like what those best practices are based on, you know, one, what's already been approved by the state and what the state kind of came back with and indicated that they needed to include in order to be approved. And then, you know, kind of some other guidance coming from the state as this process has evolved, and they've recognized the need to identify a few other areas to include in that list. So I think we have a good start on that. And again, Linda, your document was really pretty comprehensive, and really thoroughly enjoyed that. So thanks for sending that over.
So then we have some additional questions about outdoor seating. Again, Jeff, that's part of the conversation everywhere. You know, we're fortunate here to have some space with outdoor seating. So how that would fit within our variance request, if the commissioners approve it. There's been no decision made. That's our Monday special meeting. Katie has a question about how do y'all, I love y'all, how do y'all expect business owners to enforce those orders? I do not want to play ordinance enforcer as well. I think that as a community, we're all facing that, of course. And as a state and as a nation, we're sort of pivoting to more personal responsibility, but it does put more of the onus onto the restaurant owners or lodge owners to try to keep these protocols in place for the safety of your diners. And so I don't know if that answers your question, Katie, about that. Do you want, Kat, do we want to unmute everyone as we're going through the questions? And then if we want to unmute everybody and then put yourself back on mute, and then if you can just help us be respectful as we work through so everybody's not talking over each other.
Yeah,
so if you want to,
as long as everybody can respect that if somebody is speaking, please do not interrupt. Let me go in here and figure out how to do that real quick.
So let me keep and so put yourselves on mute so we don't have the feedback.
Yeah, if you don't have anything to discuss, go ahead and mute yourself. If you have a lot of background, mute yourself.
Can I better ask my question?
Sure.
Okay. So if, say I've got a group of 7 people that come in, whenever we do allow for indoor seating or outdoor seating, are we expected to space them out because they don't live together in the same house? Like, that's what I'm not going to sit here and tell these people about. Do you live together? Have you been sick in the last 24 hours? Are you allowed? Like, I just want to serve people a good meal and have a great day. Does that better specify my question?
Yeah, and I think that's, if you guys can mute if you're not speaking, there's still quite a bit of feedback.
Okay.
Maybe.
Are we good?
So Kat or Katie, I think that some of those questions will be what we discuss, how, you know, not only here's the policies, but how do we implement those in a way that's comfortable, right? Not only for the restaurant owners, but also for the groups coming in. And a lot of that, I think, will be education right? And then personal responsibility.
And that's
as
my
well.
question. If it's a personal responsibility issue, I can't be grilling everybody for their personal choices, right?
So maybe that's something that we look at. How do we communicate what it is that we're asking patrons to do, maybe is a question. Let's see, there's a question from Ginny about the variance. So we're not quite sure what the dates are because we don't know what to expect from the governor on May 26th or 27th. We can,
Okay, hold on.
that's all right.
There you go. Hold on. Oh boy. Okay, carry on.
So I believe what we're looking for is just feedback on whether we do want to consider a variance. I will tell you right now, the commissioners are really looking in two different, for sure, just conversations. One about the dine-in restaurant options, whether it's dine-in, interior, or out on the deck. That's one that we're looking at because a lot of counties have requested that as part of their variance. And then the second part is short-term lodging. So that'll be our next kind of conversation. But there is some discussion about these trigger points are going to be used kind of as we move through the next 6 weeks or so. So the timeline is a little bit flexible, but we don't expect new guidance until after May 26th.
Okay, so I'm going to unmute Jeff Heaton, and then after that, Linda Gardner. Okay.
Okay, Jeff?
Okay, can y'all hear me?
Oh yeah.
Sorry about that. Y'all have an echo like I have? All right, hold on. Let me turn this down. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I'm not for just jumping in and opening 100% and all this stuff, but we need to gradually open. As a business owner and a restaurant owner, 25% restaurants are not going to be able to make a living. If we can go 30 or 40 or 50 even for, I don't know what the plan is for a 2 or 3 week span to eventually get open at 100%, because we can't continue trying to make a living, pay our bills, and not go into foreclosure on 25%. We can't do that. Restaurants cannot do that. We have to have the walk-in business, the dine-in business. We can still space everybody out and do whatever, but certain restaurants can't physically do that at 25% and make a living, seeing how short our season is. So I really need everybody that is making these decisions to think about, we've only had 3 instances. It's been weeks since we've had any others. I think we have cleared a huge hurdle from new cases, but I think we have to get things going again. We can't continue to be buried up in some bureaucrat's decision 500 miles away on what we do in our town, that he's thinking about maybe what's good for Denver. We're not Denver. We're not Gunnison. We're not Crested Butte. Yeah, there is a risk, but people are adults. They're going to have to take the risk. And having issues with, when we have like 0.00041% of cases in a town and we're shutting everything down. It's scary as hell. And I wish the people that make the decisions really think about what I'm saying about the percentages. 50% we can live with for a while, but 0 or 25% we cannot make a living. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you,
Mm.
Jeff.
Jeff, this is Tara, and I just want to say I completely understand the need to take into consideration what works for us versus what works for Denver or even Mesa County. And just to give you kind of some insight on what a lot of our conversations have been so far internally, it becomes a logistical, a mathematical nightmare to try to figure out what 30% looks like in one restaurant versus what 30% looks like in another restaurant versus what it looks like, all based on like 30% capacity of fire code. When Jody's going into a building, to have to do that math individually for so many different vendors does not really make sense. Our recommendation was socially distanced tables. Makes sense to be able to visually look at and say, they look socially distanced and it looks safe, versus trying to do some sort of calculation on what a percentage is on everybody individually, what their seating capacity looks like. So that's kind of been the direction that we were thinking. So I'll just throw that out there if that feels more comfortable to people. I think our goal is to not have to create something that's super hard to enforce, but that's something that everyone can live with, as far as like, we know what socially distanced looks like. We know what separating out tables and what a capacity limit could be, to honor that separation between tables. So whatever it looks like individually in each restaurant, that's how it would happen. So that's kind of the direction that we were headed on that. And so I'll just end there.
And I just want to ask Kat, so we're recording the meeting and then we also will be able to have our group chat in an Excel sheet that can go to the commissioners. I just want to make sure that we are capturing all of this, because I think that's a great venue for getting that feedback.
Yeah, so the chat will be saved. The chat
Okay.
box will be saved, and then you'll have the recording as well. Okay, so it's 10:43. The restaurant portion of the forum is scheduled to last until 10:45. Linda Gardner has a question, so I'm going to unmute her. This will be the last question. And well, let me look and see, and then I'll address some questions that are in the chat before we end the forum for the restaurant portion. Does that sound okay? All right, so let's see. Okay, go ahead, Linda.
I've just not heard anything all morning about the wearing of masks. And are we going to still be doing that? And that would pertain to all the meetings this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
So Linda, under Safer at Home, critical business owners and people that are front-facing to the public are required to wear masks. General public is encouraged to wear masks. So that won't change.
Chrissy, do you want to address Katie's comment? Or Tara?
Yeah, and before, and I think we missed a question from Mr. Hartman about ice cream and taking ice cream and sitting down outside. Tara, if you want to take that one.
Okay.
That was from a little bit earlier.
Oh, okay. Let's see.
So under the current Safer at Home, it would not, if that was part of your premises, and that would be included in that variance request. to go back to Katie, I hope that answers your question. To go back to Katie's question about enforcement and what's not doable, I think this is the big ask right now. In order to make this work, it has to be doable. We have to have buy-in in order to say we are committed to being socially distanced and being able to follow some standards by which works. I know that's hard, but and probably not a nice answer to put out there, but that responsibility, yes, people have a personal responsibility too, but businesses also have that responsibility of helping us make that work. To say these are the standards by which we're allowed to operate, and if we don't have these standards, we're not allowed to operate under the state, guidance.
So then Katie was also wondering, she says, what do we do when we have groups of 20 or more? This plan is not doable for us. We also fall under not being about to keep the building on with 25%. Abel.
Yeah, so we, in the development of what those guidelines would be as far as group sizes and whatnot, the socially distanced aspect of it and how to separate people out is all still under development. We have, under what we've submitted for Mineral County, we said no more than 8. I think the idea is to keep family units and people that are coming together from staying, from being, keep them together versus just having a free-for-all of everybody coming in and recognizing and pulling all the tables together, and then you have a huge mix of people. So going back to the intent of things is to really keep family units and people that are traveling together, still maintaining social distance so that groups aren't mixing, and that's the idea.
Let me unmute myself. Okay, so I've turned off the chat for any further questions because we're about to go into the lodging phase of this forum. You all are welcome to stay, of course. Once again, the questions that are going to go into this phase are going to be directed more towards the lodging. And I'm going to repeat myself. So you're going to hear a lot of stuff that you already heard at the beginning of all of this. I'm going to start admitting some people. If you guys want to go, refill your coffee, grab a bagel, whatever. It'll be just a couple of minutes and then we'll start the next phase of this forum.
So just to our restaurant owners, just to sort of recap on this, there is a website called Energize Colorado. It's either .com or .org. I will find that out and look that up for you. There are some supply chains there with cleaning supplies and masks. If you're finding it's hard to get some of those things, that is the point of this Energized Colorado group, is to sort of fill that need between private supply and what we need. And then if you want to provide your comments or thoughts on a variance request and what that would look like, if you could send written comments maybe to the commissioner's email, or plan on participating Monday at 3:30. And then if you want to get the plan from Climb Elevated Eatery, you saw that Linda included her email address in the chat box, to sort of see what the protocols are that she's looking at for their restaurant. And I just want to thank everyone for participating in the conversation today. None of these conversations are fun. None of them are what we were expecting a year ago. We know that it's been 2019 was a hard year for businesses. 2020 is shaping up to be more challenging than we thought it would be, and we are also trying to walk that line of getting all of our businesses through the season as well. So if you have my phone number, if you want to talk through other strategies for assistance that might help as we're in this maybe challenging summer. But I just really want to thank you all for being a part of the conversation and us really trying to work together to make it an okay year.
Kara, do you have anything else to add? Do you want to, or do you just want to wait till we get back into the lodging?
No, I guess I do have to say, like, I realize that this is still hard, and I realize we're all trying to figure out what the new normal looks like right now. And I know it's not perfect, and it's not going back to everything that we had before. And it's going to take all of us to make some adaptations to make that work. And I apologize that it does have a new normal look to it right now. It's not just us that are having to adapt to that, though. It's happening everywhere around us. And I think we have a unique opportunity being in a small place to do our best and to keep it a healthy balance between doing what we can to integrate economic needs and health needs at the same time.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody again. And Chrissy just put in the chat the link for the website she was speaking about, Energize Colorado. So if you guys want to go ahead and write all that down. A lot of this you've already heard, so I'm just going to repeat myself. Be patient with us here for a second. Okay, so everybody who has just entered, we are starting the lodging phase of this forum discussion. Again, for those of you that don't know, I'm the executive director at the Chamber of Commerce here in Lake City. Couple of things that we're doing right now. Everybody is muted. You cannot unmute yourself. You have the ability to raise your hand. And right now I have the chat locked, which will be unlocked when Christy or Tara open the forum for discussion or questions. One thing we do ask is that since we are in the lodging phase of this forum right now, try to keep your questions to have to do with lodging. So earlier I had mentioned that we are going to be rolling out a new website for Lake City on June 1st. Also, the Chamber will be distributing the Lake City visitor guides around the same time. One other thing to talk about is we have a Facebook group. It is called On the Menu in Lake City. If you are not a part of that group, I strongly encourage you to join that group, specifically restaurants and lodging owners, because takeout and curbside is going to be the new norm for a little while. And so if you have your guests and whatever, then you can encourage them to use that as well. So the restaurant owners will be posting their menus, their specials, their hours, anything else they have going on. So it'll kind of keep you in the loop. I'll put the link for that in the chat so that you can join from the chat. And then you guys are always welcome to email me with any questions that you have, and hopefully I won't miss your email. My email is chamber@lakecity.com. If you, restaurants or lodging facilities, have promotions that you need me to help you with, you can email promotions@lakecity.com. And this includes vacancies. You know, once you guys are allowed to open and have regular business at whatever capacity that is, you are more than welcome to email that promotions at Lake City and let me know what your vacancies are, and I will do what I can to help you fill those as visitors come in or contact me to want to know who's available. Okay, so today we have Christy Borchers from DIRT and Tara Hardy, the director of Silver Thread Public Health. They're going to discuss some things with you, update things that you need to know for your industry, and then they will open the floor for discussion and questions. Please try to be patient. There are 86 participants right now, and that is a lot to manage. So if we miss you or whatever, I greatly apologize. To ask a question in the chat once the chat box is open, please use all capital letters and pose your questions such as question, dash, semicolon, what have you, and then your question in all capital letters. I will put an example in the chat box for you so that you can see exactly what I'm talking about. So now I'm going to go ahead and unmute Christy and Tara so they can get the ball rolling for you guys.
Hello, you guys. Good morning again for the third time. For some of you who've been on the previous calls for us, we had a conversation with second homeowners earlier this morning. We just had a kind of a restaurant owner conversation. I'd like to welcome also Sheriff Cambish, who is on the line. Town Manager Caroline Mitchell is also on the line. Our emergency manager had to attend a different meeting, so he is now off. And I'm thinking we might still have Buffy on the line. It's a little hard to see everything. So I just want to thank you guys for participating in the conversation. The goals of the short-term, well, hi Buffy Witt, she is still here, I'm glad. The goals of this morning's conversation about short-term lodging. That's what we're focused on right now. Tara's going to give us a current snapshot of short-term lodging under the current Safer at Home guidelines. And I would just like to answer the current Lake City Chamber question of, is the sky blue? It is absolutely blue. That makes me feel a little bit successful that I knew the answer to one question at least today. So I just want to thank you all for participating today. These are hard questions, hard discussions, and we'll hear from Tara on the current status of short-term lodging.
Yeah, thanks, Christy. So as you all know, that under our local orders, we had short-term lodging not available to anyone except for essential visitors to our county. Our local orders expire on May 15th, at which time they will not be renewed. So that part gets lifted. Under Safer at Home, there are still some restrictions under short-term lodging or hotels and whatnot. The interpretation that we're going off of and the guidance that we got by the state encouraged us to apply for a variance for that if that's what a main portion of our economy depends on, which we all know that it does. However, also under Safer at Home, they do say that hotels and places of accommodation are able to maintain renting. It does not say that they cannot do the short term, but they do put restrictions on anything through like Airbnb or VRBO and those types of rentals. I guess the reasoning behind that, obviously orders coming out of Denver seem to think that that's how they're going to discourage vacation type rentals as opposed to more long-term rentals, which so that's kind of a weird way to address that. But anyway, so Safer at Home would still have restrictions on short-term lodging for those entities. That is the current status.
Okay, thank you, Tara. Can you guys hear me? Okay. So that's the current status. Now where we are going into and what we're talking about and what we're asking from short-term lodging folks is to provide feedback to inform a commissioners meeting discussion on Monday. So if we want to, maybe I'll back up just a little bit more. We have had a Sunday night business leaders group meeting for a couple weeks, and there have been several of our short-term lodges that have developed a little bit of a protocol and process for opening if that was allowed. So we have sort of a sample that has been worked on by several folks. I think we can talk about that. And then Tara, I know there's another big question about campgrounds in general. So I don't know if you want to start with the campground portion of it, which is not really related to the variance request.
Yeah, I can start with campgrounds. So campgrounds are not addressed under my local orders, nor are they addressed under the state orders. So in my conversation with some of the commissioners, you know, our local campgrounds that don't fall under Forest Service and BLM, which those campgrounds are closed because of their restrictions, they are kind of beginning that opening process right now, which is our normal time of year when they start to open. There's been some guidance that's come out as far as safe opening, like some best practices for how to maintain those campgrounds and what they should do in order to help keep things safe. So I'll work directly, you know, with the commissioners as far as getting that message out, like what some of those best practices are. So but that won't be under the state orders. They're not addressed. So.
Okay, so campgrounds then are set over here. The question kind of before the business community now is short-term lodging, if and how we move forward, or if you want to share your thoughts on a potential request or not. And Kat turned the host control board over to me for just a second. So if you guys want to put a question into the chat box or raise your hand and I can unmute you. I'm afraid if I unmute everybody, then we get that feedback. So if you want to put a question in there, we do have a proposal or like I said, sort of a plan from Lakeview Property Management. I believe Hall Realty Vacation Rentals has looked at it as far as just a sample of what could be agreed to possibly as part of our requested variance. I was encouraged actually by the response that Tara shared with us from the state encouraging a variance request for the short-term lodging. I think that does give us a little bit of direction. Do we have any questions that you guys want to type into the, and let me see. Good morning, Howard. Whoops. How come I can't unmute you? There you are.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good. So I have a question. You talked about the campgrounds are not falling under the current restrictions. So does that mean that we can open the RV parks to short-term rentals?
So after the 15th, then yes, you'd be able to do that because that's when our local orders would expire.
Okay.
In the state, you know, I've been working with some other public health places, trying to get some best practice guidance for RV parks too. You know, to address any of the common areas, if there's like places where people tend to congregate, how you can manage that, the check-in, check-out process, stuff like that. So I can try to get you some information on
That would
what.
be helpful.
Okay.
If you could, do you have my information, and we can reach out later and get that. You know, we don't have any
Yeah.
facilities at our campground. There's no public restrooms, no office buildings. And I'm doing payments online by phone and doing all forms online just to try to keep distance, the 6 foot, and doing all of those requirements. But to see what you guys have would be very helpful.
Okay.
And another question, as far as the, right now there's like if you come to Lake Cedar, there's a 14-day isolation period. Is that going to be released as of May 15th?
Correct.
Okay.
That will go.
Come into town and with whatever guidelines the city has at that time, right?
Yeah, whatever the Safer at Home, everybody will be subject to Safer at Home, just like any other Colorado resident or visitor. And then when the commissioners put together the variance process and we kind of approve a plan that fits all of our needs, then they would also be kind of be subject to that too. Not under order. It would be, this is how we need to operate in order to keep things safe.
Okay, great. One other question. As far as the trails, Cinnamon Pass and Engineer, are there plans to open that anytime soon, or do we have any idea of when those trails will be opened up for riding? I mean, that's a big part of our business.
Sure, and I can take that question. And then, Kat, after I answer the Grizzly RV Park folks, I'm so sorry, I'm blanking on your first name.
Debbie.
I'm so sorry.
Sorry, it's
Debbie,
Debbie.
sorry.
Debbie, that's okay.
It's so good to see you again. Then we're going to have Tana, Kat, speak for just a second if you want to unmute her in just a minute. So we installed gates, you might remember from last year, Debbie, our issues of last year, the gate that is at Burroughs Park, that's where people can currently go to. That is open right now, and we have had one crew of 2 plowing behind that locked gate. The Ouray County commissioners decided on May 5th to begin plowing as normal, which for them is next week. We are going to coordinate some signage as a Alpine Loop to encourage people to continue to socially distance and keep their physical distance from other groups. We are calling into San Juan County's meeting this week on the 13th. They also have a locked gate at the bottom of their pass. We had put those in last year for safety and also to allow for our road and bridge crews to plow without the public in and around them, because there were some close calls, especially on the San Juan side, with the public being in there when they were not quite ready to manage both public people in there, but also just the actual plowing of the roads. You know, last year's conditions were quite different. So we will have more information after the May 13th meeting, but the 4 counties are committed to having the loop open and having a safe and great summer. So that is our plan.
Thank you. That's great to hear. Okay, that's all I have. Or do you have any other questions? No, we're good. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deb.
I'll put my email address in the chat box once it gets unlocked.
Let's see, so Kat, I have to be the one in control. How do we let's see, let me also.
Okay, there's 3 little dots in the right-hand corner of my window.
Okay.
Click that.
And I click yours.
You did it. Dots.
And then I think I did just unmute Tana.
I'm unmuted.
And then you make host, it says. That's why I sent you a picture of the screen earlier.
I couldn't quite figure out why you sent me that picture. It wasn't as exciting as the previous picture that you sent of your brand new grandbaby.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, you're the host. All right, Tana, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Just real quick, one question that I know others had. When we're asking for this variance, what date are we trying to get, like, as soon as these orders expire type time, like the 16th, before Memorial Day? I guess that's my question. I'm not that busy, but some, in town get busier than I do that time of year. And then the other thing is, anybody that wants to take a look at what we've kind of developed, same thing that Linda had, just email me. And I'll put my email address in there if I can figure out how to type. I'm on an iPad, I can't figure out how to do this. But I can send that list of recommendations that I made up with Jackie at GNM, with Danielle at Hall, and we kind of all talked about it. So people can see it and add to it or subtract, whatever. We're all going to have our own things that we're going to do because we have different situations. But it would kind of give some guidance, so we are kind of all following the same thing. But I guess the biggest question is, what date are we going to kind of tentatively ask for? Because we need to either, some of us will have to cancel reservations or we can open up reservations. That's all I had.
Tana, this is Tara. I'll address the first part. Thank you for sending that guidance document over. We took that and have incorporated that into a greater list of best practices that we've been noticing. I think as far as the date goes, I think maybe that might be a Christy question. I don't know what your timeline looks like as far as getting everything together. I will do everything that I can as far as my part of the process as quick as possible. But I don't know how long that process looks for the commissioners here.
Thank you.
Yeah, Tana, you can see there's a question from Carrie in here about sharing that document.
You want to type my address in? It's just lakeview.property@gmail.com. I'm sorry, I'm not using my computer.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, I'll type it in.
Okay, thanks. And then I'll just send it out to whoever wants it.
And
And
thank
I
you.
also made a checkout procedure that I'm going to use in every one of mine, and I'm happy to share that. Again, people can just change, add to it and subtract from it, whatever.
So
It's just
Tana,
kind of a start. Yeah.
would you like people to email you at that address if they would like to see your plan?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
All right, it is in there.
Thank you.
Back to the question of timeframes, we do have a special commissioners meeting. Did you like that? Special commissioners? That's hilarious. Monday at 3:30. We have also an agenda item to approve or not a variance. We, as commissioners, we had a work session last Friday, I believe, and then we had our regular commissioners meeting on Wednesday, and we wanted to host this forum today so that we could get some feedback from business owners and the community and see sort of where folks' comfort level is. We have samples from Montezuma, Mesa, Mineral. We're looking at potentially 3 areas for a variance request. You heard the restaurant discussion. Many of you heard the restaurant discussion. The short-term lodging discussion, which kind of fits in with Carrie's question about Airbnbs and VRBOs being sort of the place that we're looking at possibly requesting, because that for us is where we see a bit of a hole for our specific situation. And then there's been some talk about whether or not we look at the church services, and that discussion is being led by the faith leaders. There was some talk about the weight room at the town and whether that would be included or not, and the town of Lake City at this time is not gonna be including that potentially in a proposed variance. So I'm not quite sure on the procedure. I think that I don't know that we would have a final plan ready to approve on Monday, and I don't want to get ahead of the Board of Commissioners either, because we haven't had a chance to gather up the information, look at a draft, take all of this information, have sort of a hearing in public, if you will, for what that would look like. But I think that we are also aware of the gap between orders, and we are also aware that Memorial Day is coming. We also think that this hits at kind of a good time for us. Many of our communities are talking about a reopening, but in Hinsdale County and Lake City, of course, right? This is our time of year where we are opening and sort of shaking the winter off of us. And so I feel like it does hit for us at a good time to be able to do our slow roll. So I don't know if that answers your question, Tana.
Yeah, I think that's good. Obviously we're not going to know for sure. But if we can kind of be telling people, we're working on it, here's kind of the plan that we're trying to get a variance for. I mean, everybody's in the same boat. So I feel like they're very understanding right now. But we'll be talking and reaching out to others. One question somebody had, because the discussion was blocked, Wupperman is a big question. And I know it was kind of addressed at the beginning, just because we're getting a lot of questions on that. And so that's under the, sorry, Tara, is that under the state? So we don't control that, or the Forest Service? Sorry, they were asking. Somebody else was.
So it's not covered under the state or my orders. So
okay,
that would come from the county on how they want to reopen that.
Oh, okay.
And so I offered to provide them some guidance that I've acquired. But,
so okay, so yes, chat is disabled right now. I just wanted to wait until you were absolutely ready to start fielding questions. But Jocelyn has her hand up. Are you ready? Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so thank you so much for helping us as being an out-of-state person. This is very, very helpful. I am a short-term lease owner in Lake City, and I have two questions. One is, this is my third meeting to attend. If we could clarify the difference between the May 15th date and the May 26th date, what that means. I'm getting lots of questions from renters. My rentals don't start until June, late June. So some of this, I hate to send people away if late June is going to be more of a opportunity for them to sense a little bit more normal Lake City. My second question is, some of my renters contact me directly and some contact me through VRBO. So I don't really understand, does that mean that people that rent from me through VRBO aren't allowed, but people that contact me directly are? So those are my questions. And is this a moot point if it's not until late June? That's it.
Tara, you want those? Thank you, Jocelyn.
I'll try to hit all of them, Jocelyn. So the difference between the May 15th date and the May 26th date is May 15th was for our local orders, the ones that I set through our office. And that includes lifting the restrictions on the 14-day quarantine upon arrival for out-of-town people, so seasonal residents, second homeowners. So that will no longer exist. And the short-term lodging that I had in place goes away. So under our local orders, we indicated that you could not rent to non-essential visitors less than 30 days. So that goes away. The safer at home orders are what the Governor Polis issued, that they are good until May 26th. And he does have restrictions in there around like discouraging travel that's not essential. And he has what I was trying to explain before. It's very confusing to interpret, and there's been so much debate back and forth. But hotels and places of accommodation can rent short term, but the Airbnb and VRBO cannot. The reasoning is, I don't know, Denver Metro, that's how they're trying to discourage don't travel outside of your county more than 10 miles. That's the answer that I got when I asked for clarification. They're trying to discourage that vacation type rentals. That's the intent of the governor's orders. That doesn't really do much for us here because most of our rentals are coming from out of state. And so it's really confusing, and that's why they were encouraging of going for variance on that portion to kind of level that playing field, bring us all up to the same standards of like, can short-term lodging happen or not? Like based on what works for our economy, we have a lot of the VRBO type situations here, and how do we address that the best way? I know that's not a super clear answer, but the order is not written super clear in my opinion, and it's been very confusing to interpret, but that's what the state offered. Does that help at all?
I guess what I don't know is, does that mean, can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. People rent from me a year in advance. So I don't know what to do today. And maybe today I need to do nothing. If I'm talking about June renters, I think, of course, it would kill my, it would kill me to have to go through and cancel all the people that rented from me for VRBO, but keep all the, I don't know, I guess maybe we're just not ready to answer this question yet.
I
Is
think
the answer to go and cancel all my VRBO renters?
I think if you're looking at June, I think there's a lot of time between now and June. And I feel like we can, you know, if we're going for a variance for that VRBO, that portion of it, I know it depends on when that variance request comes back and we get that approval. So I hate to say like, yes, by June it'll be fine, but I feel like by June we'll have an idea of where we are. I feel like we'll have an idea of if we get that variance request processed and approved by the state by, you know, hopefully within a week. It just depends on how quick we get it submitted. So I don't know. This part is the super confusing part, and I apologize. I didn't like the state order. So I'm just trying to interpret it. I don't feel like you should go cancel all of your June reservations on VRBO right now. That's my honest opinion.
Tara, there's a couple of questions in the chat box, so I'll just go down them real quick. Amy wants to know, so if she has a reservation starting May 30th, what should she be telling them at this point?
And that's a lodge, that's a hotel. So as of
she's Highlander. No. I have too many to track of. Hold on, I'm unmuting.
With Rose Rocky Top, right? Aren't you? Isn't that a place of accommodation or a hotel? Wouldn't that fall into that?
Wait, hold on. Go ahead, Amy.
Okay. I'm Highlander, but I'm not the question that you're referring to. I'm the next one down.
The first question is from Amy Withrow.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. That's Rocky Top. That would be considered a hotel or place of accommodation, right?
Right, yeah.
So yes, as of the 15th, you can start making those reservations or accepting reservations. Yeah.
Okay, and that's kind of the same that Jackie has for G&M. She wanted to confirm that she can open May 16th.
That's my understanding. That's how I'm interpreting, and that's what I'm going with the hotels, places of accommodation are allowed under Safer at Home.
Right. As
the intent of the governor's orders and how it kept getting described to me when I kept asking for more and more clarification was they're discouraging vacation type rentals. They're discouraging. There's a lot of hotels that are operating in counties all around us already. So,
okay. And then so Roxa wants to know, as far as like the VRBO, Airbnb, long-term rentals, do you think that will change on May 26th when the governor announces his next phase?
Long-term rentals are still okay.
Oh, okay. So, well, isn't that what So this is me speaking, right, as the chamber director, because I want to know how to answer these questions for the lodging places. What's the, I mean, VRBO and Airbnb would be a vacation long-term rental. So why are those restricted, but technically long-term rentals are allowed?
So Airbnb and VRBO can rent long-term, anything greater than 30 days. Anything shorter than 30 days is the restriction point, according to the Safer at Home.
Ah, okay. So then that's, who's Tana? Go ahead. Wait, I'm unmuting you. You're unmuted. There you go.
I'm sure, Tara, this falls into the gray area, which is where I'm gonna kind of take it. I have a website too. And so I get a lot of bookings on my website. That's not VRBO, that's not HomeAway, that's not Airbnb. And we're still a place of accommodation. So I would think as long as we're getting them that way, technically, until we get the variance, we'd be okay, correct? We have very little, by the way. I mean, we're talking 5 reservations, not much.
I don't even know. I don't know.
I mean, it's so gray. I know. I mean, I'm just gonna, yeah, we'll just wait and see what happens in the next week.
I'm just gonna keep reiterating the intent is to discourage short-term vacationers from traveling more than 10 miles outside of their county.
And if I can,
that's all you can do. I appreciate it. It'll work out, I feel like. So I'm not canceling at this point.
there's a big discussion going on right now about tourism in Colorado, what that tourism might look like. I'd also encourage you guys to look at some of the CDC cleaning protocols for lodging for the protection of your guests and also your staff, etc. I think. Go ahead, Tara.
Well, and I think regardless, you know, if the county gets the variance, and depending on when they get the variance, we'll still offer guidelines for safe reservation taking, and we'll still address that. You know, we have a list of what makes sense and how lodging, hotels, all that can begin that process, even if we don't get the variance on the technicalities around the VRBO and whatnot.
So let's just go through. There's just some very specific questions about the vagueness. So maybe if you guys want to just clarify directly with public health, because I think we're about ready to go into our retail meeting as well. I think one of the intentions that the commissioners has been stated at the working group meeting that we had last Friday. We are interested in cleaning up that distinction between hotels or lodging or Airbnbs and VRBOs. We feel very uncomfortable with that kind of a unequal opportunity within our community. So that's one of our discussions for our Monday meeting. If lodge owners or short-term rentals would be able to provide us with written comments, that is also helpful for us, or calling in at that meeting. And again, the variance process, we do have the protocol that Lakeview has put together with some other short-term rental companies. I actually don't know, Tara, I'm just thinking out loud. It is not addressed in mineral counties, and I don't believe it's addressed in Montezuma counties, and I don't believe it's addressed in Mesa counties. I think that different counties were just taking a different interpretation of the governor's orders. So this particular one might take a little bit more of our time to flesh out a little bit.
Yeah, it's just so tricky on this one. And I guess if I have
give an answer right now. If it's not clear that your place is clearly a hotel or a place of accommodation, and there's this weird, like, is it VRBO and whatnot? If we can just get some clearance on that before we proceed, whether it's the variance or the governor lifting on the 26th or changing or helping us out with a little bit more guidance, that would definitely be the safest route. I don't want to be in violation. It's just this really tricky balancing act of trying to interpret and do the right thing, and give people direction and guidance for, like, what does that mean for me on the 16th versus on the 26th or whatnot. And this one's the hardest one. I apologize. I'm trying to interpret it the best I can.
Can I just jump in real super quick? I know we need to hurry and try to get over to the retail portion. There are new owners for Inn at the Lake. So Inn at the Lake is considered hotel motel type accommodations, right? One of her concerns, and you can see her question in the chat, is whether or not she would need to limit her rooms. So say she has 10 rooms, instead she only opens up 5 of her rooms for rentals. I would like to say that probably that's something that's going to be addressed either after the 15th or after the 26th, right? I mean, as far as like maybe that being something that's in a variance, if it needs a variance, I don't know that that needs a variance.
I don't feel like that one would necessarily need a variance. But again, giving clear guidance and offering some best practices around that would be advised.
Okay, so do you feel like it's safe to say that the accommodation businesses such as Inn at the Lake or the Alpine Moose or North Face Lodge, those that have all their rooms are right within line of each other, they're okay to open?
An American Elk Inn too, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
It would be, that's my understanding of it right now.
Okay.
And even the guidance that we got back when I specifically asked the question, are hotels and places of accommodation allowed to rent the short term? They came back and said Airbnb and VRBO cannot rent less than 30 days unless it's to essential people. That was their answer.
Okay.
So I know.
And it doesn't really make sense, but all right then. So I'm sure that the local motels and stuff are probably really thrilled to hear that right now. So, as long as it works, it works.
And they kept, and when I pestered them again, I said, so they can rent short term. And, they said the intent of the governor was to limit vacation style renting and limit travel outside of the counties. So, and they were encouraged to not rent. So I don't know. I go back and forth all the time. Like, is this helpful or not? And then their end statement was, yes, we would encourage you to apply for a variance. So.
Okay, well, good. Chrissy, any last statements for lodging?
Yes, I would just like to thank you guys for participating. Again, if you can provide some written comments. I am assuming that you all have my contact information, but if you want to enable the chat, Kat, I will. Chat, Kat, you like that? I will stick my stuff in there right now.
Okay.
And then if it's okay, if I could have a 5-minute break before we go right into retail.
Yes.
If I'm just going to turn my video off and give me just a second to make more coffee.
Okay.
And I'd also just like to wish Grant Houston a belated birthday.
Yes, happy birthday, Grant.
Happy birthday, Grant.
The chat is open if any of you restaurant owners or lodging owners want to put your comments in there for Christy to have record of and to take to the commissioners so that they will have things to review. Go ahead and chat it up. Just be nice and respectful. Otherwise, we'll all be back in about 5 minutes.
Hey, Kat.
I'm back. Okay, are we ready? What are we?
Let's give Tara a bit. She's not back yet on, but I am going to answer a few of the questions that are in the chat.
Okay.
If we want to go ahead and unmute Tara.
Unmute. There we go.
So just to back up with a couple of these questions, let's see. Jackie's reminding folks that it is May, so we are generally have a bit of a slow roll to open. That's true. Energize Colorado. Kat, if you want to put that on your website, your everlastinglakecity.info website. I don't know if Sandy Hines is on the phone, if we want to add that as a link on the county's website. I believe, as Nancy Murphy said earlier with Region 10, it's energizecolorado.com. We can also put that on the DIRT website. And then there's a message from Terry about guidelines of restaurants and retail guidelines provided to short-term rental managers, pass them along. On a call that I was on last night with the 12 regional counties, there's some discussion about how we communicate to our visitors as a whole and to our residents and second homeowners, maybe with some consistent messaging around the state, but then maybe make it sort of with a county photo per county or something, just as this reminder, I think, because we're sort of all, we don't want to overload our folks with information. It's just reminders of how to be personally responsible as we navigate kind of our new world. And then you guys can see the comments from Roy Shaw. Roy, we're going to move into retail comments and discussion. I don't know if your comments, if you want, do you want us to unmute you? Kat, do you want to?
I can't hear you. Hold on. Hold on. It won't unmute. I don't know.
How's that? Can y'all
Oh,
hear me?
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been in exile down here, and things got kind of slowed down. Things never really stopped down here. Obviously, all the restaurants and stuff were closed. I have a good friend that runs a restaurant, and he was shut down, and he just reopened a week ago at 25%. He pushed the tables apart, opened his bar up, and Wednesday night we had our first Wednesday night sailing races on the lake, and that bar is usually kind of the hangout. And we went there for dinner, and things are kind of spread out, and all of a sudden, wham, it was overloaded with people. I mean, to the point that I was uncomfortable. And, there's a lot of people down here. I don't know if y'all know, Harris County tried to impose mask wearing in public. Big pushback against that. Some people, are complying and considerate. Others aren't. We're also seeing, as traffic increases and going into stores increases, less and less mask wearing, even though we do it. So there's a lot of pent-up energy, and we cater to Texans up there. So just something to think about. So if you got space in your restaurant, and you push your tables apart, they may show up in there anyway. So, but
Thank you, Roy.
everything's been good. So, all right.
Great.
Thanks, Roy.
Thank you.
Christy,
I want to just.
Christy, can I make a comment real quick? So I had an individual chat me something that made sense to me of like, oh, this explains it. They quoted, the actual order about the hotels, places of accommodation, et cetera, excluding short-term vacation style rentals, such as those. I'm just going to read it because it is the order that I keep referencing. Such as those arranged through an online hosting platform, including but not limited to VRBO and Airbnb, homeowner rentals, privately owned residences for rent that are rented for a period of 30 days or fewer. And then they pointed out, seems like the distinction is homeowners and privately owned residents. So that made sense to me, that if that's how we're classifying it, we get into the bookings online versus calling directly, and is that VRBO or not? I don't know. That might help clarify for lodge owners how to distinctly classify themselves. Just throwing it out there. It made sense to me, so thank you.
Thanks, Tara. I also got a chat that said yesterday the county said that Wupperman Campground was closed for the season. I do not believe that was our statement, but just that we were not yet open. So we've been just really trying to be consistent and make sure that everything is fair across the board. I think that some of the campground conversation today seems a little bit different than what we had been thinking about, and so again, we're gonna work to try to make sure that that those messages are consistent and fair with our private campgrounds. Okay, we're gonna shift into our retail meeting, our retail owner meeting. This is our last meeting of the morning of 4. So, Kat, do you want to do a welcome again for our retail owners that have just joined us?
So, only like 1 or 2 new people have joined us. So there's not really a whole lot more to add. As we have been doing, I've disabled the chat again. If you have a question, the chat will be reopened when Christy or Tara decide that they would like to open the forum for discussion or questions. Try to put your questions in all capitals so that it doesn't get lost in the chat feed. And then it probably will also be open to just general comments, as that's kind of what we've been doing. If you feel better speaking and would like to be unmuted, there is an option to raise your hand. Not you physically. I mean, you can physically raise your hand, but I can't guarantee I'll see that. So you can digitally raise your hand and we'll unmute you so that you can speak. Other than that, then it's all you, Christy.
Great. Thank you guys for calling in and attending this portion of our meeting. We are in this portion specifically talking about retail businesses and how what those protocols are that you can employ in your businesses. And so Tara is going to start us off with the current health orders. Take it away, Tara.
Hi again. So basically, this is probably the easiest section for me because we did not address them in our local orders at all, except saying that they would follow and be in compliance with what the state came out with. So when the governor lifted the stay-at-home order and shifted to safer at home, he put into place a slow opening back into the retail sector. And I think it was like May 4th was the date that in-person, in-store retail could begin. And they gave there's a really great website on the Safer at Home that the state put together to describe best practices for retail businesses. It gives a whole checklist and whatnot. And I think, we've been referring people to that. If places are asking for guidance, our office is willing to go out, and help them, give some ideas on how to implement those, what the state has. And I know we're putting together, my Creed office has put together a pretty nicely outlined thing for when our local orders lift. We're also going to go back out and just put out a here's what safer at home is. It includes the business sector aspect of it. And so they've been going out and kind of providing more direct communication. We will increase that here as well. So that's pretty much how it is. You know, they're falling under the safer at home, and they have the guidelines for what employers should do, what steps they should take, what employees should do, as well as advice for patrons coming into the store. So.
Great, thank you, Tara. And you guys can see in the chat that Kat just added that link where there is guidelines for retail. And like I mentioned, there's some work to kind of do messaging on a whole cohesive statewide potentially way, so that we don't, each individual locality doesn't necessarily have to reinvent that messaging. I want to share again the energizecolorado.com website. If you want to write that down, that is, there are supply chain, it's addressing supply chains in there for masks or gloves or sanitizer for businesses, for retail shops. I think, Kat, at this point, if you want to open up the chat, and if folks have a question about retail and how this summer might look a little bit different for retail, I think that we can open it up.
Hold on. Doug, let me unmute Doug.
How's
Okay,
that?
Fred.
Okay. Hey, so I had a couple of comments. One, I mean, particularly after what Rory had to say, at least in our store, people have been very respectful of using the masks and maintaining social distancing. Now, the one thing we're not doing, and I'm saying this after being in Grand Junction for some surgery this last week, like if you go in any of the retail stores there, like Walmart or Home Depot, they are monitoring with computers as you go in and as you go out to control the number of people in the store, which I thought was interesting. Now, while we were there, there weren't enough people there to even think about there to be any need to do that, but they were doing that. Now, my concern around here is, now thus far we have not had a problem, of course, but our peak period is just going to start here in another month. We can't afford to do that. So if there are going to be any orders, I mean, because you got to put people at the door to control that. Right. So we have 3 or 4 people we pay full time to work in the store, and we're busy, and I mean, that just might become an impossible task. I'm just throwing that out there as I'm thinking how we could implement this. But, you know, back to, have people been respectful of the wear a mask order, and they've been very good with few exceptions. We have seen a ton of, as I assume most of you are, a ton of second home people coming in. Even those folks, you know, most of them are telling us they've been doing the quarantining and whatnot too. So, and we've been providing the hand sanitizers, and people have been using that. And so from that perspective, I think we've, you know, it's been a fairly successful, or very successful, you know, opening or continuing opening of the store. But I don't know if we go further and have to control the people in there. I'm not sure how the heck you would do that. Thinking of some of the other stores in town, that would be a problem.
Yeah,
Thank you, Doug.
I think a lot of places are kind of developing what that looks like individually for their stores, and certainly businesses can put whatever restrictions on that they want to help keep their stores safe. So if they want to mandate that, you know, you can't come into my store unless you're wearing a mask, that is completely acceptable on behalf of the business owner to say, this is how I'm protecting my business and my employees and whatnot. So I think as long as you're hitting the minimum standards by which the state set forth, how that looks and the extent that you take that to protect your employees and other people in your store is perfectly acceptable if you're able to do that.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and answer what we know, a question that Tiffany had posed from Dan's Fly Shop. Are there any restrictions on our waters, lakes, or rivers? So the developed recreation sites are closed within Region 2. So that's the 3 or 4 state region. That's why our Forest Service campgrounds are still closed. I believe our BLM campgrounds are all too high still. The Gunnison National Forest, Rio Grande National Forest, and San Juan National Forest have also sent out some guidelines for outfitter guides. I'm sure I see that the Sportsman is on here as well, and so any kind of permits like that, they're just requiring that social distance within groups of more than the family unit. So those questions would go straight to the public land management agencies. Other than that, we have been in contact with CPW, with the state wildlife area that we have. That's the Mason Family State Wildlife Area. It is currently closed, like all state wildlife areas, but there's discussions on how to appropriately open that. Tiffany, does that answer your question? And I'm actually not sure if it's even Tiffany. And we have a response from Tony on the line. Happy to share the guidelines we've developed after speaking with the BLM and Forest Service. That would be great. Then the next question for retail businesses, Tara, about masks and working in the store. Do you see that one from
Yep.
Marcy?
Yep. So it indicates employees and contracted workers whose duties include close contact with members of the public are required to wear non-medical cloth face coverings over the nose and mouth. So yes, if you're in a store while it's open to the public.
Okay, great. Do we want to unmute Tony Tarasavich and let him talk? I'm not sure what username that would be.
Sure.
That's.
Give me 1 second. Let me try to find.
Or he just provided his email as well.
Okay, I believe I have or not. Oh, there you go. There, go ahead, Tony.
Hi, it's Kay, but Tony's here.
Okay.
Hey, Kay.
No, I was just saying I've spoken to our representatives at the BLM and the USFS, the Forest Service, and basically they just want us to follow state and local guidelines, but we did go out there and take a look and talk to some other shops in different areas to see what they were doing, and we kind of created our own set of guidelines following the state and following kind of the lead from other guide services. I mean, we've talked with and seen folks from Duranglers and Rigs and all of that stuff, and you know, it's kind of specific to us, but I'm happy to share it with anyone, and I sent out my email if people want it, and it's still in development, so it could change at any minute, and if people want to suggest improvements, that's great. And it's a combination of both our retail aspect of the business as well as the services that we provide. So welcome to that, anyone who wants it.
Thank you, Kay.
Great. Thank you, Kay. Do we have more retail related questions?
My office is also developing some decals that people can put up that says this business is complying with Safer at Home, and it kind of offers some guidelines. If anybody wants that, we're happy to get those out. They're not quite finished yet, being printed, but when we get them printed, we can share them out if people are interested.
So Tara, I do have a question. So since you are likely planning to change your current orders to when people come into town, they need to quarantine for 2 weeks. And previously we were saying, you know, for business owners, it was kind of the same thing. As they come into town, they can get their businesses ready and have to do that quarantine for 2 weeks. So is that going to change after the 15th?
Yes, when the local public health orders, when it sunsets, the quarantine for 14 days will no longer apply. We'll be under the Safer at Home, which does not include any of that.
Okay, all right. Just wanted to make sure.
So there's a question about the Continental Divide Trail and the Colorado Trail. I'm not sure who has asked that question, but we're super, super excited that on Wednesday night, May 6th, the town of Lake City approved a proclamation identifying Lake City as a gateway community. So thank you for Trustee Michelle Martin's leadership on that, along with the Lake City Dirt Board, and many people on this call, the sportsmen, looking to us to identify as a gateway community. We'll have a May 21st virtual designation ceremony on the same day as the birthday anniversary of the Continental Divide Trail Coalition. So look for an invite to that. I have not seen guidance at all on limits to the any kind of permitting or anything for the Continental Divide Trail or the Colorado Trail. I don't know, Tara, if you have seen any of that, but I certainly have not heard that in any of the conversations, like with the Department of Natural Resources or the Forest Service.
I've not seen anything specific to those trails other than what's listed in the ordinance with outdoor recreation and maintaining social distancing and encouraging people to be in family units and group sizes less than 10. That's all I've seen. I haven't seen anything else. And to answer Kay's question about retail and clothing, I haven't, but I can certainly put that question out there to some groups that we're all muddling through how to interpret and describe this back to our community. So I'll throw that one out and see if there's any guidance that anyone's found.
I think, so Nancy is asking, just to clarify, so store owners and staff need to wear masks, correct? And then, but it's not required that patrons wear masks.
It's not a state order that the general public has to wear masks, but again, that can go back to individual businesses setting their own requirements. So if a business wants to require that, they have every right to do that.
I would like to just thank you guys all for being involved. This is not new for Lake City and Hinsdale County to be resilient as we deal with new and different disasters where we're challenged by decreasing tourism seasons and our dependence on that tourism. So we're looking for other ways to create some innovative strategies and are all ears as we move forward with some of our strategies and ideas. You guys have my phone number and email address. I want to encourage you also to sign up for the Sunshine List. If you're not on the Sunshine List, that's a way that you can get county agendas and then participate directly with county government. We will be having our meeting on Monday to look at a potential variance request if that's the direction that the commissioners opt to go following some of this feedback. So if you as retail business owners or general public or whatever would like to provide us with comments, that would be helpful to help guide some of our decisions.
Christy, can I throw out another comment?
Sure.
I just, again, for those of you that missed the first part of the first session, which seems like it was like 10 hours ago, but I just want to thank everybody's commitment to looking at what this new normal looks like in this moment. And I know it's not easy for any of us, and that we want things back to the way that they were, and that's just not feasible. But what is feasible is for all of us to do our part individually and as businesses to keep our community as protected and as safe as possible, especially as we see an influx of people coming. It's important now more than ever to really kind of set that normal up and create that norm so people know what we expect and how we want to continue keeping our community safe. And just because we've only had 3 cases, which thank goodness we've only had 3, it doesn't mean that we're immune from it ever happening. And I just want to promote from the public health standpoint of things. Our goal is to keep everybody safe, all of us locally, and as everybody comes into town, keep us all safe. And again, we'll do our part to keep monitoring the situation, make sure that we're not from an enforcement side of things, but monitoring the data and the event and the situation as it goes forward. And we'll continue to make decisions based around protecting everybody. So I just thank everybody. In order to make this work, we just need everybody to understand that we're trying our best to weave together the economic pressures with the health pressures and make sure that we find a happy medium so that we can all do what's right and best for all of us to survive in a healthy manner. So thank you.
Thank you, Tara. Christy, can I just address the businesses from a chamber standpoint real quick?
Yeah, and
go ahead.
Was Marcy trying to raise her hand? I wasn't quite sure. Okay.
I don't know.
It's good. We're good.
No, we're good. Okay. This really has, it's just a quick reminder to chamber business members specifically. If you have business cards or rack cards, get them to me. So, because we're gearing up to open the visitor center and help promote your businesses. So make sure I have all that stuff. Just a little side note. Carry on.
Great. And there is a question from, okay.
Oh, well, just to clarify about masks too. Masks don't have to be like surgical masks or anything like that. It can be cloth face coverings. So just putting that out there.
There's a question from Deb at the Grizzly RV Park about the Gunnison restrictions. You can go to Gunnison County's website and it takes a link to their restrictions, Deb. They are allowing and have always allowed Hinsdale County residents to do essential errands in Gunnison County. I think that their orders are going through the governor's orders. Actually, I'm not sure. I don't want to speak for them. Thank you, Kat, for sending that on.
Sure.
But Deb, you're encouraged to follow some of the safety protocols if you are going to Gunnison to shop. There's also, you can go to citymarket.com and place online orders, and then you just pull into the parking lots and they bring it out to you, which is so fabulous. I don't know if that answers your question or if you had other specific questions.
Linda Gardner has her hand up.
I can answer that question about Gunnison restrictions also, maybe not to the extent that they're hoping. I don't know all the details of their restrictions, but I do know that they have not applied for any variances yet from anything. They do have some parts of their current orders that are still stricter than the state at this point, and they are looking to eventually kind of phase in to start aligning with the state orders here gradually pretty soon. So I know it's still pretty vague, so I don't have any of the details, but that's my understanding of how they're kind of dealing with Safer at Home right now. They do still have some stricter things in place.
Okay, I'm gonna unmute Linda.
Am I still on?
Okay, there you are.
Hi, Linda.
So they're saying going to Gunnison for essential, but is golf. I mean, what are we doing about if we want to travel to Gunnison County to play golf?
I think they opened their golf courses, but I think that they still have some restrictions like number and party and whatnot.
So we're okay.
Yeah, I did think they opened that up.
They did. We're members, and they have opened it up to everyone, actually, as of last week, I think it was. But nonetheless, we're okay. That's not really essential, but we're okay to do that.
I think the intent of the governor's orders is to keep everybody within 10 miles of their county, which is kind of not that doable for Lake City. We're so intimately connected to Gunnison County, but again, the intent is to keep things as safe as possible. So
You can see there's a comment down there from Commissioner Thompson about Dos Rios is open, and you can call for tea time.
Yep. But so, okay, you're fine with that.
I think if you're a member of the golf community, you're a member.
But I didn't, again, it just, you asked us not to go except for essential.
Oh, no, the Safer at Home is indicating that. Like, yeah.
But you're okay with it.
It's a matter of opinion of what's essential, right? So.
Well, hello. We're in Dallas. We're feeling it's pretty essential at this point. Thank you.
Do we have other questions? I really appreciate your guys' the time this morning. I think it's been a great morning. It's been nice to see a lot of your smiling faces. Looking forward to seeing your smiling faces with your mask over it, so I can't tell if you're smiling or not later. But, you know, we're glad to answer more questions. You have our phone number, my phone number, the email address. Are there any other retail questions? There's the message from Buffy Witt to remind us all that mental well-being is essential. That is true.
And harder to achieve.
All right, well, I think we are good. Look at that. We are at 12:14, Kat.
It's amazing.
For our meetings that started at 8 a.m. this morning, that is actually amazing.
Yes.
So thank you all for your time and your efforts, and feel free to reach out to us with further questions.
Thank you,
everybody.
Have a good
All
day.
right. Thank you all.
Thanks.